listening to The Downside.
The Downside.
With Gianmarco Soresi.
Okay, I'll say the few funny things. We have to, at least for this, find something amusing. I have a friend. I checked in with them before I bring this up. The last couple of years, they've been struggling with like suicidal thoughts, and they've been doing better. But they kind of, they're not online. And so late at night, my on and off suicidal friend was texting me like, "Hey, so what are the updates?"
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't know what kind of positive spin I can put on
But
this.
also, were they in the woods? Why
They just don't. They just kind of like glance, like maybe they look at like they have a weird like they look at the BBC for some reason, but they're just disconnected. And so I'm like, I mean, honestly, it's looking like we should all kill ourselves. And
what did you say?
I said, "Oh, it's not looking great, but like I always tell you, things can get better."
Oh my God. Oh.
Where were you?
Partially at a comics watch party. I didn't see at any point. It didn't seem to be going well for liberals.
No point.
No point.
Oh,
no.
I was at a party and I was like that thing where I felt like right away something came out and it was like showing an exit poll and I was like, that's so bad. That's so bad. That and I felt like everyone at the party was in denial for like another hour or so.
Yeah.
Like they were all like they were all like people. I was like watching people in slow motion laughing and like. And I was like, "Why are you laughing?" Like
everyone's like, "The Republican always leads early," and I'm like, "Is that true?" I don't think that was true.
But those Georgia early exit stuff I was like, "Fuck me, that's bad."
I think in my
news.
mind, the stupid thing is they said like Pennsylvania was like 150% compared to 2020 in terms of turnout.
Yeah.
And I've been so trained to believe
That's
high
good.
turnout means
Good.
Democrats
Liberal.
win,
Yeah.
and it's like, nope, not
Nah.
anymore.
People are squeezing out of the aisle 11 of Walmart to go vote. I will say I had dinner with Senator
Steve
Jeff
Bannon.
Jeff Flake.
Uh-huh.
He was the
one who like he
what
basically
did he
turned
do?
against Trump during.
He turned against Trump. His big moment was when Kavanaugh was being confirmed, he was the Republican to be like, I don't know about all this Kavanaugh stuff. And then he has become known as like a moderate Republican and turned against Trump and then endorsed Harris in this election. I had dinner with him last night with my family.
Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Classic. Sorry to come on the podcast and be myself, but
I actually had dessert with Trump. Yeah.
I had dinner with him and his wife, and then a biographer, my parents, and we had dinner at the Grill, which is this really fancy New York restaurant that used to be called the Four Seasons, separate from
Sure.
Yeah, the Grill and the Pool. It's this really opulent like tableside preparation, white cloth waiters, and I'm with these politicians at dinner, and we're all sort of watching Trump win, and I was like, this feels like a really good setting for like a violent Civil War style coup. That like I felt like this is where I'm gonna die. Like in this
the white
fancy
tablecloth
restaurant.
is a perfect backdrop for the blood of the rich.
Yes,
Yeah.
it felt like that. It felt like that.
For those of you tuning in, it's a Patreon exclusive. I think we're just going to release it wide. I hope our patrons will understand. Basically, we recorded a lot of episodes. I think
Too many.
before the election.
Too many
And-
that now are going to be so awful when you listen to them.
What the fuck? What the fuck? No, we there's probably like 3 minutes in each episode where you're gonna go like I hate hearing you going like who knows.
Yeah.
But but then I get good. So the point is, the Patreon. This is the place where you get the quicker turnaround. We're going to release this, I think, publicly for the most part. If you want the up-to-date stuff, join the Patreon, patreon.com/downside. But this is just for anyone who likes it and needs just to listen to something right now. And we wanted to get the perspective of the working rural class. So we brought on Lucas Zelnick today. When you were at that dinner
Yep.
with Jeff Flake,
I know. I couldn't pass it up when my parents offered.
what was the... How was he like, we got this?
No.
No.
Well, listen, the exit polls looked bad. So I was with Jeff Flake, his wife, a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer of American presidents, and
What was this? An election themed dinner party?
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. And then because my parents want to be clued in, and then the wife of the editor in chief of the New Yorker, who he was sending her texts during dinner and saying it's really not looking good. My team says it doesn't look good. And then Jeff was kind of upset because I think Jeff would have loved maybe an
Sure.
appointment in the cabinet.
Sure,
in the
and
Harris.
Kamala
Yeah.
promised.
He was
a lot
on.
of
He was on the
Republican
list,
appointments.
I guess, for Secretary of State.
Someone tweeted, Kamala got to wish there's going to be a ton of Republicans in the cabinet now. So you're getting updates throughout the dinner. How late did the dinner go?
Jeff had to leave to go on NBC, so and then I stayed because there was dessert.
Yeah.
And then I went to a comics watch party. I think dinner went to like 8:30. Listen, I was really tired and it was not looking good. And I knew I was going to be up early with that feeling of dread, because that's how I woke up. Is like I woke up like I had been drunk the night before and had said things I regretted. Like it was that pit in my stomach feeling.
Yeah.
So I knew that I didn't have any hope when I went to bed, and I figured I'd wake up to the news that he had been elected, and I did, and I was up very early.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Tova had truly one of the worst. So I took an Ambien last night. I needed something. I mean, I was just, And then Tova had a night terror, and it was like 3 a.m. And it seems like she's fully conscious, and she was furious at me. She's like, "Why didn't you let me vote? Why didn't you fucking let me vote?"
Did you not
And I'm like,
let her vote?
I didn't. And listen, that's why New York went blue. No, but it was so, and like being in a relationship, we're all in relationships. It really is tough because it all feels really awful. I certainly, and like, you can't just fully lean on each other. Like I think about when I was a kid and I could just have someone older and just go, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they go, it's okay. And like when you're in a relationship and you both feel this like pit,
Yeah.
you both have to you have to self-monitor
Well, 'cause
so you don't become.
sometimes you get each other riled up, and it makes things worse. Actually,
Yeah. Or you
and then
get
sometimes
mad.
you're like, well, and then you're like, sometimes they're telling you it's not that big of a deal or something, and you're like, what? Or vice versa. It's just,
I woke up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and went to a coffee shop, which is, I mean, you've never seen so many devastated liberals in one room
Sure.
at a coffee shop in Bushwick. It was like being at Ground Zero on September 12th.
Yeah.
It was just
Could you felt like it feels different to like.
It feels
everything
different-
was, the
different than-
flag was flying half mast. The Mac DeMarco EP was at 50% volume. It was.
it's weird having been here for 2016. It doesn't feel the same as 2000. I think 2016 was shock, and this feels like defeat. Do you know what I mean? Like
I think there's such a reality
I'm
of
out of gas, and right now, and I'm defeated.
But
And-
this is how it gets fixed, because he's going to have the presidency and the Senate, and for all we know, the House. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And then poor white people are going to be poor, and then they're going to be like pissed.
well, that's
That's
they?
the only way it
but that's
fixes.
what you think. But like,
will they?
I think. I mean, how much?
None of it
By the
makes
way, if he
sense
makes them
anymore.
richer, then he fulfilled his promise.
sure.
You know.
No, I guess the only bleak hope is like, listen, fascist governments or whatever you'd like to call it have come and gone. Nothing lasts forever. That's really
Trump
the only
does.
hope. Can
I'm
I
gonna
say?
die before Trump does. I just know it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Let me just okay. I went to. I really thought I'd be able to talk about it in a much different framework, but I went to a rally in North Carolina, and I was so curious. And
I'm passionate.
what was so weird is like it felt like not like I was into some secret, but like to witness people leaving. It's okay. So to witness Trump like arrive.
just to be clear, you didn't go to the rally to support. You
No.
went as like a
I went as an investigative
Yeah.
like a Daily Show correspondent who has not been booked by the Daily
Yeah,
Show.
yeah.
I went to a Trump rally.
Like hoping that you'd run into Jordan Klepper there and have him be
Yeah.
like, "You want to
Oh,
interview
you
some
wanna do
people?
a little,
Actually,
yeah,
I've
thing?
seen your
Yeah.
stuff. You're
Yeah,
great."
Or I'd be like, you want me to play one of the, I'll be the guy and you can ask me. It was like, you know, the Trump came like really late and the plane flies in and then backs up and they go on the, there's just like shitty music that was repeating the same 3 songs. And all musical artists, I know it's been said enough, but all musical artists who would hate to be played there, who wouldn't be caught dead there, and like people dancing to like the gayest songs in the world, and you're like, how do you? But so he comes, the plane comes down, and then it goes back up, and everyone's confused, and I'm like, maybe he decided not to come by, and it was very small. It was very small. Like it was the
rally or the plane?
The rally was like 2,000 people. I was confused. I thought rallies were just bigger. And I don't even mean like in a way of there were a lot of empty seats. It's just like it seemed like a small thing. No tickets. You just go less security than TSA at the airport. It was surreal. And then like 30 minutes later, the plane comes back down. It backed up. They were playing the Undertaker's theme music, which is like ominous, like death is arriving. And I was like, this is crazy that you're playing this right now.
Yeah.
And then as he walked down, then they changed it to I'm proud to be an American. He comes out. There's no energy. He's hoarse. And it's got nothing. It's got no momentum. It's got no charge. And we had to leave after 15 minutes because we had to go to our show.
Yeah.
And all these people were leaving with us. And I thought like, oh, it feels like people are over it.
Right.
These people literally, the person that is the guy on their shirt, he's right there, and you're leaving after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So it felt like in that moment, I think that's where I got my false sense of, oh no, I think it's done. Even the biggest fans don't even want to stick around because they're tired of standing.
Yeah.
But I was wrong.
Yeah, you know what? I get that. But I was at a bar downtown in Soho watching the Yankees World Series. This was like a week or 2 ago. And I was talking to my friend about what we were thinking about the election. And he was like, you know, I actually have probably as many. We're both New York Jewish kids. And he was like, I think I have as many friends voting for Trump as I do Kamala. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then this young white woman, younger than us, probably 23 years old, turned to us brazenly, I might add. She was not invited to the conversation. And goes, good. And in the same night, another young white woman, not part of the same friend group, came up to us. The Yankees had just lost, and then they were showing a news clip with a Kamala speech on the TV. And she goes, first the Yankees lose, now they're playing a video of Kamala Harris, double loss. So twice in a bar in Soho, in New York City, among early 20s white women, I saw like flagrant support for Trump. And I was like, oh, well, if it's here, I mean, I've already done Naples, Florida on the road, and I saw what that was, which was the gay people are Trumpers, the black people are Trumpers, the trans people are Trumpers. Like, once I saw that in Naples, I was like, okay, that's Naples. And then I came back to New York and I saw that happening here, and I was like, it's not looking great. So after that experience, I sort of was resolved to the big old L.
I think what was weird seeing him without any juice or gas, I thought it was about him. I thought like people liked his charisma or whatever. And then I saw that and I was like, he's old. You really, when you see someone talk for 15 minutes in a row unedited, you go, Jesus Christ, you're an old guy who would be excited about this. And so now I don't even know. In my mind, I thought when he passes away, which time would dictate has to occur at some point.
Not anytime soon. That guy's gonna live a long time.
Yeah. That it would be like that it would be a real big blow to everything. And maybe it will. Maybe it's literally the specter or the image, or like it doesn't even matter. But I thought it was the character. I thought maybe it is the character, but it's just no longer the person itself.
I think it's become beyond that. I think the problem is we've all been, even liberals, like it became a counterculturalist movement. And that's really the problem. because we all started listening to Zach Bryan wearing Carhartt, and it became cool to make mainstream what the middle of the country was feeling.
Yeah.
Like when you listen to country music, which has had its moment in the last couple of years, you're sort of embodying those feelings. And I don't think that impacts everyone, but
Sure.
I think you kind of get into that mode and you become that a little bit. Like I think it's just more like Republicanism became badass again from being old and white. And that cycle happened in front of our very eyes, certainly in pop culture. I mean, I'm wearing fucking Carhartt pants that I bought in the South that are like someone was a mechanic that owned these, and now I'm wearing them in the Lower East Side, and that's cool. And that's what happened. And if you do that for enough young people, because that was the big story of last night, is all the young people, right?
Yeah, they said this idea of Gen Z is going to save us, or that Gen Z is.
Yeah, but what's interesting though is because I saw someone saying, I deleted Twitter because I was like, I can't actually, and who knows how long that'll last. But I wanted.
I said to Tova, I said Russell's leaving Twitter, and I don't have anyone to talk about. And she said, "Don't trust anything that anyone does today is a permanent thing."
But I do think that I was just like, I can't. I think the how things swing so much of like, if I was on Twitter like the last 48 hours before the election, what people were saying in terms of my expectation of things was crazy then to see. And I was like, I can't have that whiplash in my day-to-day life as much as I've been having it. Yeah. So I think, but people, anyways, someone was saying on there about, we need our own Joe Rogan. And you're like, I don't know what that even means, because you're like, there's plenty of people who are talking from a more left perspective, but I don't think it's about like, how do you make them Joe Rogan when it's like what people are into is like the kind of conspiracy theory stuff, the like kind of like
you can't
like
replicate,
you know what I mean? Like I think that's what ultimately a lot of Americans are into. I don't think it's about finding a person, you know what I mean? Like
what sort of explains it to me. Okay, so I've talked about this on here, but my sister has special needs, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And my mom decided to get my sister. My mom's very civically engaged and very left leaning, and was trying to get out the vote for Kamala, blah blah blah. My mom got my sister a ballot, and my dad was like, I don't know about all that. Like, I don't think you can use your daughter to Trojan horse your way back into the polls for like a second Kamala vote.
Sure.
And my mom went to like an election, like a polling advocate, and they were like, it's actually really important, I think, that people with special needs get the opportunity to vote, and it's, their civic duty, and they should be as much a part of our society as anyone else. And so my mom told my sister that, and then my sister said, I'm voting for Trump. And my sister doesn't conceptualize these things. Like, but by the way, it was hilarious within 30 seconds to see my mom go from like everybody needs a voice to like she's fucking retarded. Like, she's like, don't listen to her. She's glue.
She's a Democrat. Yeah.
But you know what I think my sister was picking up on is just like my sister, she can tell when someone's being a fucking cop. Like, and my mom had this real energy of like, you really need to do this thing for me and for everyone. The good thing to do is this.
Yeah,
and it's this like
like
copy parental vibe that that I think has made young people be like, well, what the, then no.
There's like this isn't the right word. This is a bad, but there's like a troll kind of like thing of like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like there is a thing of a response of being like kind of a culture of like, it's so important. No, it's not. You know, like that kind of thing.
But what's that blend of like? I think about all these people who were so pro cop, and obviously there's a hypocrisy. They want pro cop for the things that matter to them, but it really is wild to see the embracement that all the shirts were like, I'm voting for the felon. And it's so funny because someone on Twitter said, can we get rid of the question on job applications that said, am I a convicted felon? Because it's just, how do you appeal to that? I don't see any. I think the problem is about this idea of like, what's the liberal Joe Rogan? It's like, you can't just do it that way. It's a different kind of movement. And it's a movement based on, I think it's so, honestly, it's a more socialist ground up populist, helping people, and it's ultimately looking at these rich fucks. If anything, I think looking how
these rich.
But I mean, like,
Let's just, if we could just stay away
Let's
from
tone
insulting
down
the
this
rich. That's
rhetoric.
actually
Yeah,
really
yeah.
not funny. But what were you saying?
I think if there's anything, there's like you saw Jeff Bezos who blocked. I don't care about who Washington Post endorses, but kind of blocked Washington Post endorsing Canada. Then today had his nice tweet of like, "Congratulations, Donald Trump. We're so excited." Blah blah blah, and all these big tech people kind of going just to reveal, oh, none of them were these liberal darlings, and to really witness it. And ultimately, my only hope is that if things don't get better and all these powers that be coalesce around the conservative president, that will eventually start to be lame. But I don't know if that's.
I think that's what has to happen. Plus, he's old. Like the guy's not. I don't see
But,
him.
yeah,
how can he get another term?
He won't. He
The big
can't.
question, though, is what happens after Trump? Like, I do think it's so much of the lifeblood of this movement is him. Like, I just, when you see a goofy person like JD Vance, you're like, is that gonna be your guy? Like, are all of you gonna coalesce around that guy? Like,
I think this guy.
he's
I
such
think
a
it will be like
goof.
Sure. I think Trump's next 4 years will, after seeing that 15 minutes, I think it's like Biden, where this guy is extremely old. He didn't want to release his medical records. He's so old that there will be. But the difference between him and Biden is I think Trump will refuse to not be public facing, and you're going to see it. And the question is, I wish you could hear a real, actual conversation between JD Vance and his people about like what their plan is. Because I think, listen, everyone who worked with Trump, everyone thinks that they can work with him and ride the wave out. And time again, almost all of them get fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the thing that he's done that will last forever is he's exposed how allergic certain people are to the ways in which career politicians speak to us. But that doesn't have to be partisan. Like, I do think,
Yeah.
I could see Joe Rogan becoming the president. Just because
Sure.
people are like, I don't want to hear, because J.D. Vance is still a politician.
Yeah.
Like, all these other people are politicians. The thing that is compelling about Trump is that he's not.
Sure. I think one of the things with Trump is like, it's rare. I don't think someone like Joe Rogan would ever want to be president.
No?
Like I don't think it's a
Don't will
particularly
this into
fun.
existence. through
they're
this
gonna use
podcast.
This clip right now.
I just don't think it's like a fun job.
No, but listen.
I think the reason
They're
that there's
all
a
ma-
lot of career
Joe
politicians.
Rogan likes UFC. I don't think he's like into like
Fun.
lighthearted fun.
Yeah.
That's like a skull bash.
fucking UFC.
It is one of those things of yeah, I don't know.
The question is, at least on the Democratic side, is who is this going to make people fucking? I know people are so exhausted. There's clearly not this energy of like people marching right now,
right.
but like, is it going to shake up anything in terms of the Democratic power? Will people be so fucking bummed and so fucking like, Jesus Christ, the same fucking shit again?
Yeah.
That people will go, who the fuck knew
Well,
about this about Biden? They'll release in the books like, yeah, in the second day of Biden's term, he shit his pants and no one said anything. And it's like all those stories that would ideally make people go, well, fuck these people at just the line of the Democratic Party. We'll see what happens. We'll
I would
see
think
where
there
that
has to be
bitterness.
some soul searching when you're banking for so long on young people being like, oh, well, and Republicans at some point they're not going to be there because we're going to get younger people and they're more and more liberal, blah blah blah, and then having that bubble burst and being like, oh, that's not, you can't just hope that the younger people will vote for you. That I feel like burst, that there has to be some sort of
Yeah,
you would
there was
hope.
this assumption of,
You would
well,
hope.
finally when this generation dies,
you
we'll
would
be
hope
free.
that there's, you would
Yeah.
hope there'll be some sort of recognition of that, But it's a lot of work. It's a
it
lot
might
of work.
just be like celebrities from here on out.
You think, yeah, just like, we got to find our own Trump. Like,
But
let's,
also,
yeah,
but
like,
also, can
I don't know, Rosie O'Donnell. Like, they were in a
Yeah.
fight once.
But I
So
don't know.
who's liberal Trump? Like,
But I think the problem is we see, and this was the same with Hillary, and I think sometimes I get re-shocked where I'm like, yeah, all these celebrities coalesce around the Democratic. There's always a joke of like what celebrities are into the Republicans, and it's like Mel Gibson and then some E-list actors, and then you look and you go, yeah, it doesn't matter. Our celebrities are not appealing to the majority. I don't think the Beyonce or Oprah like appeals to enough of America. Clearly they don't. Every time, the same with Hillary, where you look at like you look at the Trump rally and literally they're playing recordings of artists who would never perform on their thing, and then you look at the Democrats and they got Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift, and you go, that doesn't matter. It really, there's such a. We have to shake off the thought that our celebrities matter. Obviously, the Joe Rogan seem to like have
it's a different thing though. It is like they don't like that either. Like they're the people are like, you know, Hollywood or that sort of thing is deemed as like this class of people that
and some of the
Rogans
aren't deemed like rich elitists. Somehow they maintain this status of like
yeah.
But that might be short lived. I don't know. I mean,
You think so?
Maybe.
Is that an optimism?
Well, no, I don't think it's an optimism. I just think that there's only so long you can be countercultural until you're mainstream. I do think that that's true.
Yeah.
But isn't that what
liberalism was countercultural in a way until it wasn't, and now I mean things are only counter. The more the powers that be disenfranchise other voices, then the disenfranchised voice can become countercultural. And I think it's like it's not people don't quite see it yet, but the powers that be is Joe Rogan. I mean, he has the biggest platform that exists right now.
They're saying the top 4 podcasts, and I get the podcast is still a small portion, but it's like it's Rogan, Ben Shapiro, the Haktua girl, and then one more.
She's on there. Fuck.
I'm gonna kill myself.
I will
on
say-
camera right now.
But that's the thing is like, so
Maybe we won't even break top
Yeah.
10 if you killed yourself on camera.
So Trump was this like longtime liberal New York guy that then found a home among Republicans and sort of became a mouthpiece for them.
He's
and then
like
kind of
every
did
other
his own
stand-up
thing.
comedian. He started
Trump's
off
like
and
Tyler
then he's like,
Fisher.
"Oh, this isn't really working that. It's not really
You
playing
might
that
have
well."
to bleep that.
No,
No,
it's fine.
no,
we have.
no.
I mean, it's up to you, but please don't make me bleep it.
And but why this is why I think liberals need like a guy that used to do blackface. We might need like Trudeau again, or something.
Sure.
Like someone that used to,
But
for a
not
long time was Republican and now is
Well,
switching sides and being like, "Fuck it, it's
I
cool
think-
to be liberal now."
One thing that can be so difficult is that I certainly think like we have an ideological purity tests with so many people, and if there's one thing that conservatives do well is they go, we don't give a fuck as long
They
as
do and they don't. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, there's like certain things we can be like, like they don't care about certain things in terms of foreign policy. A lot of
Sure,
liberals.
but we
Do you know what I
really
mean?
care.
Like,
Per your
there's,
point,
like-
per your point, if someone has just a spotty past on certain
Oh, yeah, like a
views,
thing like
it's,
that, yeah.
it's like they're disqualified immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like we've been beaten so bad. I think that's part of this like, damn, we were beaten so bad.
So bad. And every
we
single
were fucking
there's not one
throttled.
thing that you can be like, oh, they should have done this, or
You can't even blame it. You can't even blame it on the people who
all
did
the way
protest
across.
votes.
No.
You can't blame it on the people who
No.
said because of Palestine not for Kamala.
No.
Because even if they got all of them, they still fucking
still
would have
would've
lost.
lost.
Yeah.
So there really is like there's no one to blame but you fucking.
But you, but
you.
like
But
the
the people at
party,
the top
but
of-
the Democratic Party.
We need
yeah.
someone macho. We need Mike Tyson. Mike
Sure.
Tyson for president.
God, I hope he fucking destroys
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul. God. At this point, I just want to see someone punch.
I saw Douglas at the party last night, and he was like, well, it was not going well, and he goes, God, if she loses and Mike Tyson loses, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It really was his thought of like, if Jake Paul wins too, like what kind of world? This is the world we're living in, you know?
I guess one of my so I was thinking about. I was obviously thinking about. We made this video where there was a time where I said, "Am I ever going to do Kill Tony? Like, is that a thing? Is that part of the career? And will I have to navigate that?" There was a question of, I got some shitty, meager offer to do like Legion of Skanks, and I think in my head I was like, "There's some comedians that I admire that are part of that world."
Yeah.
In certain ways, I'm a comedian first. I would love. There's some comedians I disagree with tremendously that I would have a great conversation with, And ultimately, I decided not to do it. And it was just like, I don't know if people who enjoy my work will be, but my biggest fear was I'm going to go on the show and Roseanne's on the show or Tucker Carlson's on the show. And I would have to figure out like some way to be like the smart ass to roast them, to make a joke, or probably not. And just ultimately you're entertaining and being part of the thing.
Yeah.
And we all make those decisions. And of course you could go on the highest end and go, well, you did the downside on Amazon and Jeff Bezos is the richest. So who the fuck, what's the point of having any morality at all?
Yeah.
But I certainly think there is the smallest thing it controls what platforms, who do I work with? And I think of it now and I don't even know what it looks like. I'm glad
you didn't go on Skype. Because my thing is, I'm like, the only solution to me is you go on Skanks and you go on Kill Tony and we can all just intermix and we just leave space for them to feel how they feel about things and you to feel how you feel about things. And we stop trying to, I think it's a different thing if there's like a guy who's like a notorious rapist, for example, and he's like out doing things and you want to go open for a rapist or you want to go like, you want to go like be on stage with Chris D'Elia, I think is different. I actually do.
Sure.
But I'm like, if you are a Trump guy and I'm a libtard, like, why can I not go on your thing that is supported by your people and disagree with you if we're talking about it, or find common ground about like making fun of whatever the fuck that we both think is funny?
But I think you get stuck in a place where, like, for example, first of all, there's some of those guys I so deeply disrespect.
Yeah.
And it would be like it's ultimately like someone might say something that's so hateful or so fucked up that, and I don't have a funny response to it. I think the problem is this: like, comedy relies ultimately on. I don't want to be a preachy comedian. I'm not. I don't want to go to places and be like be the cop. I want to be funny. Frankly, I look at the world today and I go like, sometimes I go like, fuck, I don't even know how to be funny because I like to be sardonic. I like to be like poking fun. And right now to poke fun at like Democrats or liberals right now feels like kicking a dead horse.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, you fucking got throttled. Let me make fun of you more for your hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, I don't think you always have to overthink I think ultimately you're like, you don't want to go on that show because you don't think it'll be fun and it's not where you'll thrive.
And by the way, Chris D'Elia might look at Russell Brand. Like, there are serial rapists who will lean into that, and before you know it, that's part of the. Did you interact with everything?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is everyone has a line. I was naming mine.
Sure.
Like mine is if you are like a criminal and abuser, right? Not a white collar criminal that I can live with.
Sure.
But I mean like a violent criminal.
Yeah.
Then I think now I'm like, we don't have different views. We literally have different beliefs about how we act in the world. But if it is a matter of like, I think you're a racist and you think I'm a soft-handed, unrealistic, elitist, overeducated pussy, then like I do think we might be able to work that out. I also think the biggest thing that I learned, I didn't become any less liberal, but I felt like I learned a lot in Naples, Florida, because what I learned when I did 5 shows at Off the Hook Comedy Club, and I had some of my own fans come out who were Trumpers down there, and I had a lot of like 50-plus-year-old people, and in the first show I did, I walked 20 people off my second joke, where I said that Trump's only racist because his supporters are. That was a line I used to have. And I was like, why am I saying that? And also like, they're racist by our definition. They're not racist by their definition of racism, obviously. They're tired of being called racist. They're tired of being called Nazis. And frankly, I kind of get it. It's like what is the obsession with calling poor whites racist because they don't believe in white privilege because their lives suck?
Sure.
And so finally I'm like, I think the only way that we can move forward is that it's sort of incumbent upon us to a certain extent to stop being like such fucking cops about everything, go into those spaces, and then just be ourselves. Say the things we think, not violate our own perspectives, not even necessarily be shaken on our own perspectives, but maybe stop like bullying and canceling each other for being on the same stage or in the same space as them. Because that's
Sure.
the thing. It's like the career repercussions. Thankfully, like my fan base doesn't, I don't know if they don't care enough about me or I haven't gone to enough of those spaces, but they don't seem to be like pulling back on me when I go into, I did a Gas Digital show and like I didn't.
Sure.
Gas Digital and Skanks I think are different, but they're one and the same also.
Yeah.
But like I'm like, I'll go in and I'm not going to change my perspective and I'm not going to laugh at a joke that I thought was racist if one's made.
Sure.
But I'm going to go be part of spaces where people disagree with me and I'm going to see what that's like.
Sure, I think there's a strength. I think there's a strength that and an importance to that. I think for example, again, this is never going to happen. I think partly because I made my bed. I have to sleep in it. Of like, I won't ever be on Joe Rogan. I think that's a reality, and I think part of it, it's like, I don't want to be with someone who. I have that fear of like they'll let's say Joe Rogan starts talking about trans people. For some reason he goes like, yeah, let's bring this up. You have a joke where you're a trans ally, so let's just talk about this niche thing that, and I'm gonna look like an idiot because I'm not studied in whatever fucking case he's dealing with. Or he comes on and Matt Walsh is the surprise guest, and I'm dealing with kind of like people who are trained to literally, it's just like, it feels like, am I just feeding this beast that I think sucks? Is where I know I'm not being articulate. I just don't know. I don't know where my line is.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, like, I've been kind of bitchy enough that I've prevented, honestly, from.
But I would challenge that side to do the same thing as I'm saying I would do with them, which is I'm like,
sure, but I don't think they will. But I
go
don't
get
think
a
they will. We did it with
Gianmarco
them
on your podcast. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
go take someone and then just you be yourself and you be yourself. And like, the more I find, because I don't know, like before I was a comedian, I operated in broier spaces, and I was always the liberal, probably the most liberal guy, like in my broier spaces. And just recently, I was like at a wedding with some friends I went to college with, and found out they were pretty much like all Trumpers at this point, which like I hadn't been clued in. I've been in comedy world and where everyone's liberal, especially in New York, and then all of a sudden I'm like back at this wedding, and they were like, well, you think like you're going to be better off or you're going to pay more taxes. And I was like, I'm going to be fine financially, regardless of who wins, regardless of the tax rate. And I just like sort of stood my ground on how I feel. I was like, I don't want people walking around feeling like their president is coming after them based on who they are. I don't like that feeling. And as a result, I'm willing to take a more regulated economy or, a tax system that's like more onerous on the upper middle class, wherever you define it. Like, and it just felt good to have that conversation with my friends and then be fine on the other side. I was like, that was the thing that honestly, I think that is my learning from all this is we need to be fine with that.
I agree to an extent, but I also find that I grew up upstate, very conservative area, and I will find myself in conversations with folks, and what I struggle with is it doesn't feel like it's going to be a genuine conversation. It feels like me as the liberal who knows he's out of place doesn't want to start a fight and has to then endure weird talking point about trans people in sports and things like that don't matter in these people's lives.
Yeah.
It does not matter in these people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, I don't know what to do with that, because it's like, this doesn't matter to you. Why do you, and they'll say, then people will say like the economy. And I know people struggling and are not doing well. And maybe that does drive them, but that's not what, then I get trapped in conversations, and there is a lot of racism and there is a lot of weird transphobia. And I don't know if there can be an honest conversation where we make any kind of I don't know. I'm not saying it's worth not talking and not
but I
dealing
hear the
with.
trans thing from a Republican, and I'll just be like, fuck, do you care?
Yeah.
Like, then let's, because the thing is, like, maybe there's a fringe of people that will isolate that issue, but I think most would at the very least concede if you push them on it, that it's not a primary
Maybe
issue.
I think that might be a little. I saw Trump on the stage. That's always like one of his like 5. Like we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna get trans women out of. Not that's not how he said it. He said we're gonna get men. He didn't use all the appropriate terms. We're gonna get whatever pronoun they choose to. No, he just said we're gonna get men out of women's sports, and it's like. I think the problem is like I don't. There's part of me that goes I agree with you.
I do, yeah.
And there is an importance to like.
I think it is really
you got to
unhealthy.
talk,
Yeah.
and this idea of separating, especially
Yes.
now that we don't have the majority, even with a higher voter turnout, you can no longer pretend that
Yeah.
like this is a smaller
There's more
contingency.
Americans
But
that
the
are-
other
yeah.
part of it, I just go like, man, when. I think it's lame when liberal comedians have politicians on the show, and I think it's even lame. And obviously, I care more of when they have these conservative politicians. And I go, aren't you just feeding into the propaganda of it all? And the part of making it not cool to have your comedy be with the people who pull the levers of power. Does that happen gradually? Does it happen, as we talked about earlier, when the economy doesn't improve and you go, hey, fuck Elon Musk? But otherwise it just feels like you're just part of contributing to good entertainment.
Yeah.
You're just contributing to, hey, you gotta watch that episode of they got the best. It's Lucas Zelnick and it's Tucker Carlson. It's fucking insane, and they roast each other, and then you're being funny and sticking by your views, and Tucker's just laughing like and everyone's having fun, and it's the point of is being part of it, especially being part of it as an entertainer and a good comedian. Are you not just normalizing it? Are you not just making it fun? Are you not just the token liberal who makes it all okay? I don't think the other solution is good either. But
that's where I get back to. Because I think if you're like, let's say you're a trans woman watching this, right? And you hear my perspective and you're like, well, here's the thing. That might be easy for you to say as the straight white dude. You go be yourself. And you go be buddy-buddy with a Republican, and you disagree, and then you show that you guys can be friends at the end of the disagreement. And then the trans woman would be like, but I can't do that. I can't be buddy-buddy. I can't be accepted in their space. And my answer to that is like, yeah, that's true. And I'm sure if I were a trans woman, I would relate more to that experience. Obviously, I'm not, so far as I know, at this time. But the thing is, I'm like...
Just, that joke would have done better on Kill Tony.
I identify as a badass.
Yeah.
My pronouns are shut up. All right.
Jesus.
Also, let's just also point out that like
Tony's here.
some of this comedy
Come on
is
out, then.
so
Yeah, it's
bad.
lame. It's lame.
So bad.
It's lame. I agree with, but so is ours. So is all comedy is so bad.
I think
I mean, there's definitely like examples.
There's no doubt, but I think it's bad. But it's just
But I guess what I'm saying is we've already tried the version of calling them Nazis and saying they won't let us exist. And I wonder about the version where it's sort of like, well, Chappelle's a terrible person to reference on this point, but it's like, why not let the Republicans try to do the I have a trans friend or I have a black friend? Like, let them try to make a friend. Like, try.
Sure.
Couldn't friendships maybe? The reason why that excuse came about, like I have a black friend or a trans friend, it was someone trying to say like, I respect this person's experience and their existence. So while that's now become like the worst thing you could possibly say in a liberal space, because really it's proof that you don't know anything at all. I'm like, what is the actual harm of trying to be a little more tolerant? That's the thing that I'm trying to do, especially this fall, especially as I was on the road. I took every sentence in my act that it was like the thing where I said Trump's only racist because his supporters are racist. And I asked myself, I was like, that's not a laugh line. That was a transitional line in my stand-up act.
So how did you phrase that?
So now I say he reflects the views of his supporters. And the joke is still the joke that I was always doing, which is my joke is that he will support who supports him. So if trans people supported Trump, he'd be at a rally tomorrow and he'd be like, I'm non-binary.
Yeah,
I'm changing my name to Trumpet. And that's like still the joke I do. But I think it's a lot more tolerable for these people when you don't call them racist to begin with. And I asked myself as a comedian, I was like, if calling them racist is not a laugh line, why am I saying it? And I'm saying it out of my own like liberal resentment for who these people are.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing while not accomplishing any of my goals as a comedian is alienating some of the people in the room. And I think I want to stop taking so much pride in that.
Yeah.
I get that.
No, that makes sense.
I don't disagree, and I always think I always think comedy, it should be a laugh first.
Yeah.
My mind, and it's like the idea of like, oh, deep down you can see my values underneath the laugh of it all. But at the same time, I just hit a wall, and I go, it's idealistic in the sense that there are some people out there that have shit views or who are homophobic in like a deep way that it's tough for me to square. It's tough for me to, there's a certain point where I go, what's the point? And again, to call people Nazis, there's no point, but just to use it as extreme example, what's the point of putting on a good show for Nazis?
Yeah.
What's the point if you were to take the most extreme example of if you were in Nazi Germany, you could go, well, I'm going to keep dancing because I should be an entertainer, and you shouldn't challenge, and you're going to walk the audience if you say that. But when does it get to that point?
But I'm not saying don't challenge it.
Sure.
I guess I'm saying don't rule out the opportunity to challenge it by refusing to enter that space. And to the question of whether it's idealistic, for sure it's idealistic. For sure it's idealistic, and for sure it's unrealistic that we're all going to be friends, but it doesn't seem to be any more unrealistic than the current approach, which is like abject pessimism across all facets of everything. And, oh, I don't believe that we could like be in the same room and coexist, and like that's the thing we've lost. And here's the only thing is, the thing that the Trumpers are doing is just being unapologetically themselves. And the thing that we're doing is getting mad at that.
Yeah.
We've been ourselves for a while now.
Sure.
So my thing is like, we should be ourselves and they should be themselves. But it's starting to feel incumbent upon us in the wake of this loss to stop being so mad at them being themselves, and instead to try to coexist with them and still be as unapologetically ourselves and see what that does.
And I think you can look at things where there were certain places where Kamala got less votes than the like pro-choice ballot measure, where there's a degree of there's some views that are popular that have been tied to like that are disconnected from the current message of
abortion largely was protected except for Florida, Nebraska, and one other.
In Florida, because they have a fucked up rule of 60%.
Yes, they have the 60% mandate, and apparently the whatever vote it was to make it a 60% mandate got less than 60%.
Yeah.
It was so confusing because I saw yes, no, and then I saw no had more votes, and there was a check mark next to no, or yes had more votes, and there was a check mark next to no, and I was like, what does this mean? I was like, I couldn't follow it.
We already said it too. I think it's hard because I agree with everything you're saying. I do think it's that thing of it is much easier for the three of us to be in spaces and be like to have those kind of things and feel like I'm recognized as, and it's fine. And I think that there's a lot of people who can't do that, and so that's where you're like, what? I agree with everything you're saying. I just don't know. It feels so complicated.
I agree too. I get that.
I
get that it's easier for me to say, but I'm like, then I'll just be me and I'll do the things that are easier for me. And I will try to, my view at this point as me, not as anyone else, is that I can be most effective in putting forward my views, which are incredibly left-leaning, if I am willing to, at the very least, enter those spaces and have those conversations.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here and saying, why can't trans women go to
Yes.
Mississippi? I
Yeah.
am saying, why can't I, when I'm already on stage in the South, open my mind to like trying to make my point in a way that doesn't, out of pride and out of principle, push away
Yeah.
those people before they can even hear it.
Sure.
Well, because
I
even
guess,
hearing
but-
that joke is as the instead of framing it as a racist and saying it reflects the people, you know, I have my own interpretation, which is exactly what you were already saying. You know, like
Yeah.
even hearing it framed that way, we already put those pieces together where but they wouldn't. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's times I go, it's very persuasive, but like, for example, sorry to be devil's advocate on it, but it's like your joke about Trump, which I think is a very good joke, no doubt, and it's funny, the idea of Trump suddenly being trans to reflect his supporters, and then I go, what happens when you are in that audience and you go, everyone's laughing at, because they're laughing at the concept of like trans Trump, those fucking trans people. That you feel like the laugh that you've curbed it, and it makes sense what you're saying. Why would I just call you racist out of nowhere to prevent you from even getting to the joke part of it?
Yeah.
But my thought is that even that joke part will, if it's not clear what your stance is, or if there aren't some times where you are going to walk some audience members, it could be even worse of the other side where they are laughing, not because the joke ultimately at its heart is Trump is a valueless thing. Politicians are valueless things. They really reflect the people
Whatever
that
you
support
wanna
him.
hear.
And here's like a funny version of like what that would look like.
Yeah.
That you could then also in a different world find an audience where you go, holy shit, everyone's laughing because they just think it's funny to talk about a trans person, and you feel that you can go too far the other way, that it really is and maybe that's just the job of the comedian.
It's the blood laugh. It's the Borat. It's Borat saying "throw the Jew down the well," and the people who don't know he's Jewish laughing because that's a funny concept to them. Yeah, I get that,
And that's
that's
the
the
nuance.
line of
That's-
satire. But I mean, there's only so much I think we can control as comics if we want to go into these spaces and talk about these things. I also think, by the way, in the wake of like Trump losing, like I'm looking at my own act, wondering if I want to do those jokes. Or sorry, of Trump winning. Of us losing. Like
Someone's like,
For a
oh my
second, I was
god, wait,
check the count.
yeah. Wait, what happened?
You released it tonight, and they're like, wait.
I absolutely would love it if Kamala did a full like, it's stolen. We need to stop. We need to just a full on.
No, we just took the L's like the fucking pussies.
The problem
we are.
was there was no point in the night where we could have said stop the counts.
Stop the. Start the.
Keep the counts going. Keep them going.
Can we get more counts?
Yeah.
No, I might not. I don't know that I want to do all the jokes I do about politics that I think I was doing in a world where we have a liberal president and it feels like making fun of liberals is funnier. And to your point now, it feels like maybe twisting the knife. Like, I'm not sure I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that is, to me, that's a separate thing than what I was trying to say prior, which is not changing my views, but just entering spaces where they are less popular.
Yeah.
Because I think that is the thing that I think I don't so much love about liberals is the attack on don't even be at the table with them.
Sure.
Because these people are Nazis and you don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't sit at the table with Nazis. And I'm like, well,
And the lie of that in
if the
entertainment.
Nazis, quote unquote, win the popular vote, we're running out of time to say you can't sit at the table with them. Like, if Trump wins the popular vote, I'm like, and also like I do think that like you have to believe that they are not. I say this as a Jew. I'm like, you have to believe that they're not Nazis, like Nazis by the definition of Nazis.
Sure.
And if you believe that, you got like there's got to be a middle ground between Nazi and liberal. Like there's got to be. It can't just be there's liberals and there's Nazis.
Yeah. And I think there's the honesty of the view of entertainers behind closed doors are at the same table, and they've always been at the same table to a degree. Like, I mean, I think there was, I just remember a comedian who had been, quote unquote canceled and being at like a comedy club, being as vague as possible here, and being like, oh yeah, they're all pals, they're all old friends.
Yeah.
And that's why people get shocked when Chappelle opens for Mulaney and they have a fucking fit, and I go, how are you so fucking naive?
Yeah.
How are you so fucking naive that you think these figures are pure? And per your point, I mean, you know, acknowledge that you can coexist in those spaces, or that you are willing to, as opposed to pretending like you're some kind of pure thing. And then suddenly you're like, you know, you're some of these comedians who get in big trouble because they find out they're not these perfect beings.
Yeah.
And it's like, they never were. And better to be upfront about that. And
That's what I'm trying to do and
Yeah.
trying to advocate for. And I don't know, who knows what the Debbie downsiders will have to say about that. I will say last time I
I think we've been honest about, I've tried to be honest about a lot of things. I think the struggle that I have, and maybe it's just the Libby side of me that I always grew up with. I go, I don't want to be on the show that JD Vance was on. That makes me annoyed. And I think there was a time when I also feel uncomfortable with the show that all the liberal politicians were on.
There's a lame factor to both. Like in terms of, I mean,
Sure. But obviously I would have been willing to be on the Daily Show sooner than I would have been on Kill Tony. But the truth is, I do think things are not everything's
but that's
equal.
my point is, I'm like, go on the show that JD Vance was on and say, I think it's lame you had him on.
Sure, I
Can't
agree.
you?
I think
it's not like they're going to walk. The point is you're walking by not going on it. This is all hypothetical. But I'm like, that's the thing that I think we're doing that they're not doing. Now, I think they're just as sensitive as we are for different things. I don't think like we're all whining and they're all like, you know, they can't be offended. Like they can be offended. But I'm like, if you go on their show and you say, I think it's lame that you had JD on, and they walk, then they're doing the exact same thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you preemptively walk rather than go on and just be yourself and stand by your views, I'm like, that feels like a missed opportunity to me. Because maybe you say, I think it's lame that you had JD Vance on, but I think it's dope that we're talking about sea life. And now I'm picturing Theo Von. That's why I'm saying. I'm picturing like, I feel like it's like 5% you would have a real conversation and then he'd be like, what are crabs doing below 5,000 feet? And then you would just talk about that. But I'm like, then find both of those, let those things coexist, can't they? I know it's idealistic, but is it any more idealistic and naive than the notion that like, I'm just going to separate myself and we are in two separate worlds?
Sure,
because
or
that's
it's like if you want to
too.
separate yourself, then get ready to like separate yourself. Like I think sometimes there's a degree of like, okay, do you want a country that breaks apart? Then you better go advocate for that.
Yeah.
Get ready to.
But it's
to
like
do
we
those
can't
things. And
separate ourselves anyway.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, I'm not going to go. Oh, I'm not going to, you know, what's the logical extension of I'm not going to go on Joe Rogan's podcast? It's I'm not going to live in Donald Trump's America.
Yeah.
Well, we're all here. So I'm like, you can't separate.
And
like,
you could leave if you want to.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
But if you
I'm
don't
a dual
want to, you
citizen
can't be
to
like,
Canada.
I'm gonna leave. Yeah, listen.
But I'm like, I'm not over America because we elected a president that I really, really was hoping we wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm just willing to say that and then live in it and tell those people I don't fuck with him. I don't know. That to me is like, that is the, and I, you know, and then again, we all have our lines and I still have mine, you know, but if it's about
specifically just Crystalia, that's your one. That's the one
line.
principle you've fused.
Crystalia was like the
Mine.
name I was willing to drop,
Yeah.
I guess. But like, I'm like we know we all know about the New York scene and who's good and who's bad. And I won't work with the people that are bad, you know, personally. But will I go on like, you know, a talking heads thing and disagree with them? I'm down, personally.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Well,
I
I have a show tonight.
Me too.
Yeah.
You'll have more timely material. I don't write for this kind of thing. I'm like, give it a couple days. I don't have any reflections yet.
I don't ever. I mean, all my things are like, you know, they're like I got a cameo request, being like, "Can you cheer me up?" And I was like, "For $40, I don't think so."
Can you turn them down? You can, right?
You can, but I instead recorded something long and sweet. I mean, there are times that my
You can,
Wait, you
but
mean-
then I did more work than normal.
I said, I don't think
said,
so,
I don't
and
think
then I did
so,
it.
and then I did it.
there's no one
And
who
I did it
puts
extra hard.
more care and time to their cameos than me, even though I.
And I said, actually, this is free. You know.
I said, no way I'm doing this thing that I later did.
Oh.
Well,
Well,
thank you for being here.
thanks for
thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah.
For people listening, I hope there's something to pass the time. It's just, there's also just Tova just keeps going like, just the day's gonna suck, or it's just like it just feels bad. It just
Yeah,
feels
it
sad.
sucks.
It feels
It sucks.
It just
really-
sucks. Yeah.
I don't want to deal with 4 more years of this fucking shit.
Yeah.
And the constant.
It's the energy.
Bullshit
I just tired.
and the- yeah.
It's like, how do you,
You turn on the radio, you have to hear that voice.
and then
so
you
you have to hear
and
more
then you have to see the
impressions
terrible,
and-
terrible jokes about
Yeah.
him, and it's like, it's just like that energy is such a soul
Yeah.
suck.
I
And-
don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I
don't want
truly, as listen, there's times in my life I go, oh, it'd be cool to be on Saturday Night Live. I cannot imagine having to be there right now and just be like, fuck, let's write the
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah. So
write the cold open.
The cold open. What are you guessing? It's sincere or jokey?
I think they I don't think they can do Sincere again after 2016. Don't you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the
I don't know.
only guarantee in this world is it will not be funny.
Just, hey.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. If you join the Patreon, that's where you get the timely ones. If you listen to the regular, I apologize for those we recorded pre-election, but they're still good episodes. And we'll be back next week with Tony Hinchcliffe. This is The Downside.
You're listening to The Downside
The downside.
with Gianmarco Soresi.